Hi guys, tonight we're stepping into the smoke-filled basements and forgotten arenas where wrestling wasn't entertainment, it was survival. Drop your city and local time in the comments. It's fascinating to see who's joining us from around the world. Now dim the lights, maybe light a candle for that gentle glow, and let's walk together into the gritty, bloody world where WWE was born from nothing but desperation and a handshake that changed everything. You're standing in a damp basement in 1953, and the air tastes like stale beer mixed with broken dreams. Congratulations, you've just entered the world of Capital Wrestling Corporation, where your grandfather Jess McMahon is about to make a deal that will either save his family or destroy it completely. The basement smells like wet concrete and decades of cigarette smoke that's soaked into the walls like a nicotine museum nobody asked for. Your business partner, Toots Mondt, sits across from you at a folding table that's seen better decades. He's built like a refrigerator that learned to walk, and his handshake feels like getting grabbed by a mechanical vice that's having trust issues. Listen to the drip of condensation hitting the concrete floor, each drop marking another second closer to either fortune or bankruptcy. You're about to sign papers that will split the wrestling territory like a pizza nobody really wants to share, but hunger makes strange bedfellows. The pen in your hand weighs roughly the same as your family's future, and the ink is cheaper than the promises you're about to make. Your palms are sweating more than a fitness influencer's workout video, but this isn't about looking good. It's about surviving in a business where one bad booking decision can send you back to selling popcorn at baseball games. The territory you're fighting for covers the Northeast, like a blanket made of barbed wire and broken bones. Every town has a wrestling promoter, every promoter has enemies, and every enemy has a lawyer who charges more per hour than most people make in a month. Your competition includes guys who think a fair fight involves brass knuckles and a referee who's been paid to develop sudden blindness. But here's the thing about desperation. It makes you creative in ways that comfort never could. You're not just building a wrestling company, you're creating a machine that will eventually eat its competitors like a corporate Pac-Man with anger management issues. The handshake you're about to give will echo through decades, creating an empire built on fake fights that make real money. Listen to the distant sound of chairs scraping against concrete as other promoters plot your downfall. Your son Vincent is upstairs, probably practicing his sales pitch in the mirror like he's auditioning for a role in his own life. He doesn't know it yet, but he's about to inherit a business that's part theatre, part athletics, and part organised chaos with better costumes. The wrestling business doesn't just chew up dreams. It seasons them with sawdust and serves them to crowds who pay to watch grown men pretend to hate each other. You sign the papers, and the sound of pen-scratching paper is louder than applause. Congratulations! You've just planted the seed that will grow into entertainment juggernaut that makes soap operas look subtle. But first, you have to survive long enough to water it with sweat, tears, and whatever else keeps wrestling promoters awake at night wondering if tomorrow's show will be their last. You're Vincent J. McMahon now, and it's 1963. Your father just died, leaving you a wrestling company that's held together with electrical tape and stubborn optimism. The office smells like old newspapers and the kind of desperation that makes people check their bank balance twice before buying coffee. Your desk is a metal monstrosity that's survived 2 decades and looks like it was designed by someone who thought furniture should inflict emotional damage. The phone rings with the enthusiasm of a dying walrus, and every call is either a wrestler demanding more money, a venue threatening to cancel, or your wife wondering why you chose the one business that makes carnival management look stable. You answer with the voice of a man who's learned that confidence is just fear wearing a better suit. Your territory is shrinking faster than a wool sweater in a hot wash cycle. Competitors are circling like sharks who've discovered you're bleeding money instead of chum. The Northeast wrestling scene is more cutthroat than a reality TV show about cutthroat reality TV producers, and everyone wants your slice of the pie, even if that pie is mostly made of debt and delusion. But you have something your competitors don't, a vision that's either genius or insane, and honestly, in the wrestling business, those are the same thing. You're looking at wrestling not as a regional curiosity, but as entertainment that could fill arenas the way rock concerts do, except with more choreographed violence and tighter pants. Listen to the buzz of fluorescent lights overhead, humming like mechanical bees with anxiety disorders. Your wrestlers are a collection of colourful characters who make comic book superheroes look psychologically stable. There's Bruno Sammartino, built like a granite statue that learned to suplex people, and Nature Boy Buddy Rogers, whose ego is larger than some small countries and twice as unstable. Managing them is like herding cats, if cats could body slam each other and demanded a percentage of gate receipts. The arenas you're booking are a mixed bag of legitimate venues and buildings that probably violate several fire codes. Madison Square Garden is your holy grail, a venue so prestigious that just thinking about booking it makes your accountant develop stress hives. But you're not just dreaming about filling seats. You're imagining a future where wrestling isn't just regional entertainment but a national obsession that makes people forget their troubles for 3 hours at a time. Television is starting to change everything, like a magic box that turns local attractions into nationwide phenomenons. You're watching other promoters stumble around this new technology like cavemen trying to operate a smartphone, while you're already imagining wrestling matches beamed into living rooms across America like some kind of athletic missionary work. Your business plan is written on napkins and the backs of envelopes, because proper business planning is for people who don't understand that wrestling success is measured in crowd noise and concession stand revenue. Every decision is a gamble, every show is a risk, and every night you go to sleep wondering if tomorrow will bring triumph or bankruptcy court. Fast forward to 1971, and you're still Vincent J., but now you're dealing with a problem that's both your greatest achievement and your biggest headache. Your son, Vincent K. McMahon Jr. He's 26 years old, built like a linebacker who discovered business school, and he has ideas that make your conservative wrestling promotion strategies look like they were designed by monks who've taken vows of commercial poverty. Junior sits across from your desk with the confidence of someone who's never had to explain to a bank why his collateral is a bunch of grown men in colourful underwear. His suit costs more than some of your wrestlers' cars, and his handshake has the kind of firmness that suggests he's been practicing on stress balls and small animals. The generational tension in the room is thicker than the smoke from your cigar, which you're using like a defensive weapon against his enthusiasm. He's proposing something that sounds like either the future of entertainment or the fastest way to destroy everything you've built: national expansion. Not just expanding into neighbouring territories, but systematically acquiring competing promotions like some kind of wrestling monopoly game, where the properties bleed real money and the jail time is federal. Listen to the tick of the wall clock, counting down to either empire or disaster. The wrestling business has always been built on unspoken agreements between promoters. Gentlemen's rules that keep everyone's territory separate like invisible fences that somehow pay the bills. Junior wants to take a sledgehammer to those agreements and rebuild the entire industry according to his vision, which involves television contracts that sound like science fiction and marketing budgets that make your current spending look like coupon shopping. Your son's business plan reads like it was written by someone who thinks money is just points in a video game. He's talking about pay-per-view television, merchandising deals, and turning wrestlers into household names, like they're breakfast cereals with finishing moves. His confidence is either inspiring or terrifying, and you're not sure which possibility scares you more. The wrestling territories are like feudal kingdoms, each ruled by promoters who've spent decades building their local empires one folding chair and hot dog sale at a time. Junior wants to unite them under one banner, which sounds noble, until you realise he's basically planning to become the wrestling equivalent of Genghis Khan with better hair and a legal team. But here's what keeps you awake at night. He might actually be right. Television is changing everything, turning local entertainers into national celebrities and small businesses into multimedia empires. The world is getting smaller, and wrestling might need to get bigger to survive in a future where attention spans are shorter than your current matches, and competition comes from sources you haven't even imagined yet. Your cigar smoke curls toward the ceiling like your doubts, and you realise you're at a crossroads that will determine whether the McMahon name becomes wrestling royalty or a cautionary tale told in business schools. Junior's eyes have the gleam of someone who sees the future and wants to own it, while you see risk management and the possibility of losing everything your father built in this basement that still smells like dreams and desperation. You're Vincent K. McMahon Jr. in 1982, and you've just convinced your father to sell you the company for what amounts to a mortgage that could bankrupt a small country. The price tag is roughly $4 million, which in wrestling terms is approximately 1,000 folding chairs worth of debt. Your father thinks you're either a visionary or completely insane. Spoiler alert, you're both, and that's exactly what the wrestling business needs. The office still smells like your father's cigars and decades of conservative decision-making, but now it's your turn to fumigate the place with ambition and whatever cologne costs more than most wrestlers' annual salaries. You sit behind the same metal desk that's witnessed decades of handshake deals, territorial agreements, and the kind of gentleman's understandings that keep everyone poor but polite. Your business plan is written on napkins from a truck stop diner, because proper business consultants charge more than your current monthly revenue and probably don't understand why grown men in sparkly underwear generate such passionate crowd reactions. The plan is simple in concept, terrifying in execution. Buy out every wrestling territory in America and turn the entire industry into your personal entertainment empire. Listen to the hum of the office air conditioner working harder than your current roster of part-time wrestlers. The wrestling territories are like feudal kingdoms, each ruled by promoters who've spent decades building their local fiefdoms one hot dog sale and beer vendor kickback at a time. These guys treat territorial boundaries like sacred ground, and you're about to march across them wearing combat boots made of television contracts and merchandising deals. Your first target is Vince McMahon Jr.'s gentleman's agreement with other promoters, a system of mutual respect that's about as binding as a pinky promise between children fighting over playground equipment. The unwritten rules state that promoters don't poach talent from each other's territories, don't run competing shows in established markets, and definitely don't try to create a national wrestling company that makes everyone else look like amateur hour at the local YMCA. But here's the thing about unwritten rules. They're not legally enforceable, and you've got lawyers who charge by the hour to explain why tradition doesn't trump capitalism. You're not just planning to break these agreements. You're going to shatter them so completely that the pieces will spell out World Wrestling Federation in Times New Roman font. Your strategy involves something that's either genius or psychotic. Instead of gradually expanding into neighbouring territories like a respectful business neighbour, you're going to leapfrog directly into major markets and steal the biggest stars with contracts that make their current deals look like allowances from disappointed parents. It's corporate warfare disguised as sports entertainment, and you're loading up with enough ammunition to make other promoters surrender or file for bankruptcy. The risk is astronomical. If your expansion fails, you'll lose everything your family built over 3 decades, plus the additional everything you've mortgaged to fund this invasion. But if it succeeds, you'll own an entertainment empire that makes other forms of television look like educational programming, designed by committees of accountants with personality disorders. Your wife Linda sits across from you, reviewing contracts with the enthusiasm of someone who's either incredibly supportive or planning your intervention. She's the business brains behind your creative chaos, the financial reality check to your theatrical ambitions, and probably the only person who can talk you out of decisions that sound like they were made during a fever dream involving circus performers and bankruptcy attorneys. You're about to commit what the wrestling industry considers the equivalent of corporate terrorism: talent raiding. It's 1984, and you're sitting in a hotel room that smells like industrial carpet cleaner and broken dreams, preparing to make an offer to Hulk Hogan that will either launch your empire or destroy the wrestling business as everyone knows it. Hogan is currently working for the American Wrestling Association, where he's treated like a valuable commodity but not necessarily the world-conquering superhero you see when you look at him. He's got the look of a man who could sell ice cream to penguins and make them thank him for the privilege, plus charisma that radiates through television screens, like some kind of entertainment radiation that makes people want to buy whatever he's selling. Your offer is simple and terrifying. Come work for the World Wrestling Federation and we'll make you the biggest star in sports entertainment history. Not just the biggest star in the Northeast, not just a regional attraction, but a household name that makes Superman look like a part-time superhero with commitment issues. The contract you're proposing involves more guaranteed money than most wrestlers see in their entire careers, plus merchandising opportunities that could turn his face into a licensing empire. Listen to the buzz of the hotel's neon sign outside flickering like your father's hopes for conservative business practices. The meeting takes place in a neutral location, because poaching talent from other territories is the kind of activity that requires the secrecy of international espionage and the negotiation skills of someone selling used cars to people who really need reliable transportation. You're not just offering Hogan money, you're offering him a chance to become something that doesn't exist yet in wrestling, a mainstream celebrity who happens to be a wrestler, rather than just a wrestler who might occasionally appear on local television. Your vision for Hogan involves something that sounds insane to traditional wrestling minds, making him a good guy who kids want to be like, adults respect, and parents don't mind having as a role model for their children. This is revolutionary thinking in a business where most wrestlers are presented as either barely controlled psychopaths or cartoon characters with anger management issues and questionable fashion sense. The wrestling establishment is built on regional stars who draw crowds in specific territories, but couldn't sell tickets outside their home markets if their lives depended on it. You're proposing to create a performer who could headline shows anywhere in America, appear on national television, and generate merchandise sales that make other promoters' revenue streams look like children's lemonade stands operated by economically illiterate entrepreneurs. Hogan's current contract with the AWA pays him like a regional attraction, which is exactly what he is under their business model. Your offer treats him like the global entertainment phenomenon you believe he could become, with television exposure that reaches beyond wrestling fans into the mainstream audience that watches morning talk shows and buys action figures for their children. The negotiation involves more than just money. You're selling him on a vision of wrestling that doesn't exist yet, but could revolutionize the entire industry. Sports entertainment that combines athletic performance with Hollywood-level production values, storylines that make soap operas look subtle, and marketing campaigns that turn wrestlers into brands themselves, rather than just performers hired to fill time between beer commercials. When Hogan finally agrees to your offer, you're not just signing a wrestler, you're acquiring the cornerstone of an entertainment empire that will eventually make wrestling a global phenomenon and turn the World Wrestling Federation into a multimedia juggernaut that makes other forms of entertainment scramble to keep up with your success. You're orchestrating the most audacious talent grab in wrestling history, and it feels like playing chess if chess pieces could file lawsuits and hold grudges for decades. It's 1984 and your shopping list reads like a who's who of regional wrestling stars, except instead of window shopping, you're writing checks that make other promoters develop stress-related medical conditions. Rowdy, Roddy Piper, is your next target, a Scottish-Canadian performer whose mouth writes checks that his athletic ability can definitely cash, usually with interest and a side of psychological warfare that makes actual military conflicts look like disagreements over parking spaces. Piper has the kind of charisma that makes people either love him passionately or hate him with the intensity of someone who's been personally wronged by his entire existence. Your recruitment strategy involves flying to whatever territory currently employs your targets and making offers that sound less like wrestling contracts and more like lottery winnings for people who happen to be exceptionally good at fake fighting. The secrecy required for these negotiations makes international arms dealing look like casual neighbourhood garage sales, with clearly posted prices and friendly customer service. Listen to the static of long-distance phone calls, crackling with the sound of territorial agreements dissolving. The wrestling territories are starting to realise what you're doing, but understanding your strategy and stopping it are two entirely different challenges. It's like watching a slow-motion corporate invasion, where the weapons are television contracts, and the casualties are regional wrestling promotions that suddenly find their top stars departing for opportunities that make their current situations look like unpaid internships at failing businesses. Each star you sign creates a domino effect that destabilizes entire regional wrestling ecosystems. When you steal a territory's main attraction, their attendance drops faster than a wrestler taking a dramatic fall from the top rope, and their remaining talent starts wondering if they should be answering your phone calls instead of remaining loyal to promoters who suddenly can't afford to pay competitive salaries. Andre the Giant becomes your next acquisition, a performer so physically imposing that he makes other wrestlers look like children playing dress-up in their parents' clothing. Andre's presence alone can sell out arenas, and his gentle giant persona outside the ring contrasts beautifully with his ability to make opponents look like they're being defeated by a friendly mountain that's learned to wrestle. Your expansion strategy is causing panic in the wrestling industry equivalent to a zombie apocalypse, except instead of brains, you're consuming talent contracts and regional market shares. Other promoters are holding emergency meetings that probably resemble war councils, planning defense against an invasion force armed with superior financing and national television exposure. The phone calls from other promoters start coming in waves, ranging from polite inquiries about your intentions to threats that sound like they were delivered by people who've watched too many mafia movies and don't understand that wrestling business disputes are usually resolved through lawyers, rather than characters who sleep with the fishes. Your father watches this corporate warfare unfold with the expression of someone who's either proud of your ambition or terrified by your willingness to burn down an entire industry to rebuild it according to your vision. The conservative wrestling businessman who sold you the company is witnessing the birth of something that will either revolutionize sports entertainment or create the most expensive corporate disaster in wrestling history. By the end of 1984, you've assembled a roster that looks like an all-star team composed of performers who were previously scattered across regional territories like valuable trading cards that only collectors in specific geographical areas could acquire and appreciate. You're sitting in a conference room that smells like desperation and industrial coffee, staring at financial projections that make Russian roulette look like a sensible investment strategy. It's late 1984, and you're planning something called WrestleMania, a wrestling event so ambitious that even your most optimistic advisors are suggesting you might want to consider therapy instead of bankruptcy as a more affordable life choice. The concept is simple, in the way that climbing Mount Everest wearing flip-flops is simple. Create the biggest wrestling event in history, broadcast it live on closed-circuit television to venues across America, charge premium prices, and hope enough people care about fake fighting to prevent you from losing everything your family has built over multiple generations. Your business plan for WrestleMania reads like it was written by someone who thinks money grows on trees that are fertilized with pure optimism and watered with the tears of conservative financial advisors. You're projecting attendance numbers that would make the Super Bowl jealous, pay-per-view buys that assume every wrestling fan in America owns a television and disposable income, and merchandise sales that treat t-shirts like they're made of gold thread and championship dreams. Listen to the scratch of pencils on paper as accountants calculate exactly how broke you could become. The wrestling industry has never attempted anything on this scale because most promoters understand that ambition without proper financing is just expensive fantasy with legal consequences. You're proposing to rent venues across the country, hire production crews that usually work on major television events, and market the show like it's the wrestling equivalent of the moon landing, except with more spandex and fewer qualified engineers. Madison Square Garden becomes your primary venue, a location so prestigious that just booking it makes other wrestling promoters wonder if you've confused yourself with someone who operates with a budget larger than most small countries' gross domestic products. The rental fee alone could fund several regional wrestling promotions for an entire year, and that's before you add production costs, talent payments, and marketing expenses that make other entertainment events look economically modest. Your marketing strategy involves something that's either brilliant or clinically insane, positioning WrestleMania not as a wrestling show but as a cultural event that transcends sports entertainment. You're selling tickets to people who don't normally attend wrestling matches by promising them an experience that combines athletic performance with celebrity appearances and production values that make other wrestling shows look like high school theatre productions with anger management issues. The celebrity involvement alone represents a financial risk that could sink your company before WrestleMania even begins. You're paying appearance fees to mainstream entertainers who typically charge more than most wrestlers earn in their entire careers, gambling that their presence will attract media attention and mainstream audiences who might not otherwise care about professional wrestling. Hulk Hogan becomes the centerpiece of your marketing campaign, a performer whose all-American hero persona makes him the perfect ambassador for introducing wrestling to audiences who think sports entertainment is either too violent or too ridiculous for civilized consumption. Your entire business model depends on Hogan's ability to make wrestling seem wholesome enough for families while maintaining enough excitement to justify premium ticket prices. The financial pressure is crushing. If WrestleMania fails, you won't just lose the money invested in the event, you'll destroy the credibility needed to continue operating as a national wrestling promotion. Success means revolutionizing the wrestling industry. Failure means explaining to bankruptcy courts why you thought fake fighting could generate revenue comparable to legitimate Major League sports. You're 3 months away from WrestleMania, and the stress is making you understand why some business executives develop drinking problems or take up extreme sports as healthier alternatives to corporate anxiety. The event's financial projections are keeping you awake at night like a mathematical horror movie where the monster is insolvency and the final girl is your rapidly depleting bank account. The closed-circuit television technology you're depending on is about as reliable as weather forecasting in the 1980s, which is to say it works perfectly until it doesn't, usually at the exact moment when failure would cost you the most money. Each venue requires technical equipment that's more expensive to rent than most people's annual salaries. operated by technicians who charge premium rates because they understand you can't replace them 3 months before the biggest gamble in wrestling history. Your marketing campaign is consuming money faster than a luxury car with a gambling addiction and poor impulse control. Television commercials, radio advertisements, print media, and promotional appearances all require budgets that make your father's conservative spending look like the financial equivalent of monks who've taken vows of poverty and mean it sincerely. Listen to the whir of fax machines transmitting contracts that could either save or destroy your company. The wrestling industry is watching your preparations with the fascination of people witnessing either a historic achievement or a spectacular corporate disaster. Other promoters are placing bets on whether WrestleMania will succeed or fail, and the smart money seems to be on failure, which is either motivating or deeply concerning depending on your perspective regarding other people's confidence in your business decisions. Ticket sales are tracking like a roller coaster designed by economists with bipolar disorder. Some markets are selling out faster than concerts featuring popular musicians, while others are moving tickets with the enthusiasm of people selling insurance policies to individuals who have already died. Your success depends entirely on whether enough Americans care about wrestling to pay premium prices for what might be the most expensive fake fight in entertainment history. The talent roster you've assembled represents the most expensive collection of wrestlers ever contracted for a single event. Each performer commands appearance fees that reflect their status as regional stars being asked to participate in something that could either make them national celebrities or the most well-compensated performers at the most expensive wrestling failure in business history. Production costs continue climbing like stock prices during economic bubbles created by people who don't understand that what goes up must eventually come down, usually at the worst possible time for everyone involved. Lighting, sound, staging, camera crews and broadcast equipment all require investments that make other wrestling events look like they were produced by volunteers using equipment borrowed from local access television stations. Your wife Linda reviews financial reports with the expression of someone who's either incredibly supportive or planning to hide assets before the inevitable bankruptcy proceedings. She's the voice of reason in a business venture that seems to defy both reason and generally accepted accounting principles, designed to prevent entrepreneurs from destroying themselves through excessive ambition. The pressure is creating physical symptoms that make you understand why some business executives retire early to pursue less. Stressful careers like bomb disposal or professional snake handling. Sleep becomes elusive, meals taste like cardboard seasoned with anxiety, and every phone call could bring either good news that saves your company or bad news that confirms your worst financial fears. But there's something intoxicating about risking everything on a vision that could revolutionize an entire industry. You're not just organizing a wrestling event, you're attempting to create a cultural phenomenon that proves sports entertainment can generate mainstream appeal and revenue streams comparable to traditional Major League athletics. March 31st, 1985, Madison Square Garden. You're standing backstage at WrestleMania, and the air tastes like a mixture of hairspray, anxiety, and the collective dreams of everyone whose career depends on the next few hours not being a complete disaster. 19,000 people have packed into the arena, while hundreds of thousands more are watching on closed-circuit television in venues across America, all of them expecting entertainment that justifies premium ticket prices. The backstage area resembles a cross between a military staging area and a very expensive costume party, where everyone's outfit is designed for athletic performance and dramatic effect. Wrestlers pace around like caged animals who've been trained to perform choreographed violence for paying audiences, while production staff communicate through headsets with the urgency of air traffic controllers managing flights during a storm. Hulk Hogan stands in the corner, looking like a golden-haired superhero who's about to either save wrestling or go down in history as the most charismatic performer at the most expensive entertainment failure ever attempted. His pre-match ritual involves enough positive thinking to power a small city and enough protein powder to feed a moderately sized farm animal for several weeks. Listen to the roar of the crowd filtering through concrete walls, sounding like distant thunder that could either announce triumph or disaster. Rowdy, Roddy Piper, prepares for his role as the evening's primary antagonist, with the focus of a method actor who's decided that the best way to portray a villain is to temporarily become one. His pre-match psychology involves convincing himself that everyone in the audience genuinely deserves to be insulted, which makes his performance feel authentic in ways that traditional acting coaching could never achieve. The main event features Hulk Hogan teaming with Mr. T against Piper and Mr. Wonderful Paul Orndorff, a celebrity wrestling match that represents either brilliant marketing or the most expensive publicity stunt in sports entertainment history. Mr. T's involvement transforms the event from a wrestling show into a mainstream media spectacle that attracts attention from people who normally consider professional wrestling slightly less sophisticated than professional thumb wrestling. Your production team coordinates the event with military precision, because any technical failure could transform your revolutionary entertainment concept into the most expensive technical disaster ever broadcast to paying customers. Camera operators, lighting technicians, and sound engineers all understand that their performance tonight will either launch wrestling into the mainstream or create a cautionary tale told in business schools about the dangers of excessive ambition. The celebrity guest appearances throughout the evening serve as bridges between the wrestling content and mainstream entertainment, designed to make the audience feel like they're attending a cultural event, rather than just watching unusually athletic people pretend to hurt each other for money. Each celebrity interaction must feel spontaneous, while being carefully choreographed to prevent any unscripted moments that could derail the entire production. As the main event begins, you realize that everything you've risked, your family's business, your financial future, your reputation in an industry that doesn't forgive expensive failures, depends on the next hour of choreographed entertainment. The crowd's energy feels electric, crackling with the excitement of people who sense they're witnessing something historic. Hogan's victory celebration becomes a moment of pure entertainment magic, combining athletic performance with theatrical presentation in ways that make traditional sports look emotionally restrained. The audience responds with enthusiasm that validates your belief that wrestling could become mainstream entertainment if properly produced and marketed. When the final bell rings and the last celebrity appearance concludes, WrestleMania has succeeded beyond your most optimistic projections. The event generates revenue that justifies every risk, attracts media attention that money can't buy, and establishes wrestling as legitimate mainstream entertainment rather than just regional curiosity for people with questionable taste in recreational activities. You're Vincent K. McMahon in 1995 and life should be good. WrestleMania is an annual cultural event. Your wrestlers are household names, and you've successfully transformed regional wrestling into a national entertainment empire. But there's a problem. Ted Turner, a media mogul with more money than several small countries, and apparently nothing better to do than destroy your wrestling monopoly just because he can. Turner's World Championship. Wrestling is bleeding money like a luxury yacht with multiple hull breaches, but Ted keeps writing checks with the casual indifference of someone who treats million-dollar losses like rounding errors on his tax returns. He's hired Eric Bischoff to run WCW, a man whose business strategy seems to involve spending Turner's money so aggressively that even lottery winners would advise moderation. Your Monday Night Raw faces off against WCW's Monday Nitro in television ratings battles that make actual wars look like friendly disagreements between neighbours about property line disputes. Every Monday night, wrestling fans across America choose between your product and Turner's, and their channel-changing decisions determine which billionaire gets to claim victory in a competition that's part business strategy, part ego contest, and part expensive hobby for men with too much money and competitive personalities. Listen to the click of remote controls across America, each channel change representing a small victory or defeat in television's most expensive wrestling match. The competition is forcing you to innovate in ways that would make other entertainment executives require therapy. Your storylines become more outrageous. Your production values increase to levels that make movie studios envious, and your talent contracts grow so expensive that even professional athletes start wondering if they chose the wrong career path. WCW's strategy involves something called the Monday Night Wars, except it's less like warfare and more like two rich kids having an argument about who has the better toy collection. If those toys were professional wrestlers who cost millions of dollars annually and required constant creative attention to prevent them from becoming boring. Bischoff's master plan includes stealing your biggest stars with contracts that make government bailouts look financially responsible. Hulk Hogan defects to WCW for a deal that's rumoured to include more guaranteed money than most Fortune 500 CEOs earn, plus creative control that essentially makes him a highly paid wrestler/executive producer with decision-making authority over storylines. The talent raids work both ways. creating a free agent market where wrestlers command salaries that make professional sports contracts look economically modest. Every major performer becomes a potential acquisition target, and contract negotiations require the kind of financial creativity usually reserved for international arms deals or celebrity divorce settlements. Your programming must compete not just with WCW but with everything else on television, which means wrestling shows now require production budgets that rival major network dramas and storylines, complex enough to keep audiences engaged between commercial breaks, selling everything from beer to action figures to pay-per-view events featuring more fake fighting. The pressure is creating innovations that revolutionize sports entertainment. Your characters become more complex, your storylines more sophisticated, and your production techniques more advanced than anything wrestling has ever attempted. Competition forces excellence in ways that Monopoly never could, even when that excellence costs enough money to fund small space programs. Monday Night Raw evolves from a wrestling show into a weekly television drama that happens to feature athletic performance, complete with ongoing storylines, character development, and cliffhangers designed to ensure viewers return next week to see how fictional conflicts resolve through choreographed violence and dramatic revelation. The ratings war creates a television phenomenon where wrestling shows compete directly with sitcoms, dramas, and news programs for audience attention, proving that properly produced sports entertainment can attract mainstream viewers who might not otherwise care about professional wrestling but enjoy well-crafted television entertainment. The year is 1996, and you're losing the Monday Night Wars so badly that even your most optimistic executives are starting to develop drinking problems and update their resumes. WCW Monday Nitro is crushing Monday Night Raw in the ratings with the efficiency of a steamroller operated by someone who really enjoys flattening things, and Eric Bischoff is celebrating each victory like he's personally responsible for curing a disease that affects television programming. Your creative team meets in conference rooms that smell like desperation and overpriced coffee, brainstorming storylines that could recapture audience attention from viewers who've apparently decided that WCW offers superior fake fighting and more entertaining fictional conflicts between grown men wearing colourful costumes designed for athletic performance. The problem isn't just that WCW is winning, it's that they're winning with former WWE talent who've been given creative freedom and financial packages that make their previous contracts look like allowances from parents who don't really approve of their career choices. Hulk Hogan has transformed from all-American hero to Hollywood villain, a character development that's generating more heat than most actual controversies involving real people with legitimate grievances. Listen to the distant sound of television ratings dropping, like the slow leak of air from dreams that cost millions of dollars to inflate Scott Hall and Kevin Nash jump ship to WCW with contracts so lucrative that other wrestlers are seriously considering whether loyalty to WWE is worth the financial sacrifice compared to Turner's apparently unlimited willingness to overpay for talent acquisition. Their defection creates the New World Order storyline, a wrestling angle so compelling that even people who don't watch wrestling are talking about it at water coolers and social gatherings. Your response involves something that's either desperate or brilliant, creating edgier content that pushes the boundaries of television standards and practices. The Attitude Era emerges from necessity, transforming WWE programming from family-friendly entertainment into something that makes parents question whether professional wrestling is appropriate viewing for children under parental supervision. Stone Cold. Steve Austin becomes your answer to WCW's star power, a beer-drinking, authority-defying anti-hero whose character resonates with audiences who appreciate performers who seem genuinely angry about things that matter to regular people, like unfair bosses and unreasonable workplace policies that interfere with personal freedom and recreational beverage consumption. The storylines become more adult-oriented, featuring content that would make your father's conservative wrestling programming look like educational television designed for preschoolers. Violence increases, language becomes more colourful, and storylines explore themes that wouldn't be appropriate for family viewing if families include children who shouldn't be exposed to mature entertainment content. Your own character evolves from behind-the-scenes executive to on-screen villain Mr. McMahon, a role that allows you to portray yourself as an evil boss whose comeuppance provides cathartic entertainment for viewers who've ever worked for supervisors they secretly wanted to see receive physical punishment through choreographed violence. The Mr. McMahon character works because it's based on reality. You are the boss. You do make decisions that affect wrestlers' careers, and audiences enjoy seeing authority figures receive dramatic justice, even when that justice is fictional and performed by professional entertainers who are actually employees receiving competitive salaries for their dramatic performances. Wrestling storylines begin reflecting real-world corporate struggles, workplace conflicts, and economic anxieties that resonate with audiences dealing with similar issues in their own lives. The fiction becomes more compelling because it's grounded in recognizable reality, even when that reality is exaggerated for dramatic effect and resolved through athletic performance. The competition forces creative innovation that transforms wrestling from simple, good versus evil narratives into complex storytelling that explores themes of corporate corruption, workplace rebellion, and economic inequality, serious social issues addressed through the medium of choreographed fighting and dramatic performance art. It's 1998, and you've finally figured out the secret to defeating Ted Turner's money machine. Give people what they actually want instead of what you think they should want. The Attitude Era is in full swing, and suddenly Monday Night Raw is appointment television that makes people cancel social plans to watch Stone Cold Steve Austin deliver beer-enhanced beatings to authority figures who deserve what they get. Your programming has become so popular that politicians are complaining about violence on television while secretly watching every week to see if The Rock will deliver another perfectly crafted insult that's simultaneously hilarious and devastating. Wrestling has achieved something that seemed impossible. Mainstream cultural relevance that makes other forms of entertainment look boring by comparison. The Austin vs. McMahon storyline generates television ratings that rival major sporting events and primetime network television shows, proving that properly executed fake fighting can attract audiences larger than most legitimate athletic competitions. Every Monday night, millions of Americans tune in to watch a beer-drinking rebel battle a corporate villain in storylines that feel more real than actual news programming. Listen to the sound of television sets across America tuning in to Monday Night Raw, like a collective sigh of relief from people who found entertainment that doesn't insult their intelligence. Your roster has evolved into a collection of performers who could headline their own television shows if professional wrestling didn't exist. The Rock delivers promos that make stand-up comedians jealous, Mick Foley performs stunts that make action movie stars look cautious, and Stone Cold generates crowd reactions that make rock concerts sound subdued. The success is creating new problems that would be luxurious if they weren't so expensive to solve. Your talent contracts require financial packages that rival major motion picture deals. Your production costs have increased to levels that make network television budgets look modest, and your creative team needs constant innovation to maintain audience interest in an entertainment medium that demands fresh content every week. WCW is still spending Turner's money like they've discovered a printing press that manufactures legal tender, but their creative direction has become so confused that even their own wrestlers aren't sure what storylines they're supposed to be participating in from week to week. Success requires more than just financial resources. It demands creative vision and execution that money alone cannot purchase. Your pay-per-view events have become cultural phenomena that generate revenue streams extending far beyond wrestling fans. WrestleMania attracts mainstream media attention comparable to major sporting events, merchandise sales that make other entertainment properties envious, and attendance figures that prove wrestling has achieved legitimacy as mainstream entertainment rather than niche curiosity. The corporate structure of WWE has evolved to support an entertainment empire that generates revenue from television contracts, merchandise sales, licensing deals, and live event attendance across multiple markets. What began as a regional wrestling territory has become a multimedia corporation that competes with major entertainment companies for audience attention and advertising revenue. Your success is forcing the entire entertainment industry to reconsider assumptions about what audiences want and how much they're willing to pay for it. Wrestling storylines influence television programming, wrestling characters appear in mainstream media, and wrestling terminology enters everyday conversation among people who've never attended a live wrestling event. The Monday Night Wars have transformed from business competition into cultural phenomenon that demonstrates the power of innovative entertainment to capture mainstream attention and generate significant economic impact across multiple industries connected to sports, entertainment, and media production. Stone Cold's beer truck segment becomes the kind of television moment that defines an era. combining physical comedy, corporate rebellion fantasy, and product placement into entertainment that satisfies multiple audience demographics simultaneously while generating merchandise sales and cultural references that extend far beyond wrestling programming. You're preparing for something that makes WrestleMania look like a warm-up act, taking World Wrestling Federation entertainment public on the stock market. It's 1999, and you're about to convince Wall Street that a company built on fake fighting and storylines about supernatural undertakers deserves to be traded alongside legitimate corporations that manufacture actual products people need for survival. The initial public offering process involves explaining to investment bankers why professional wrestling generates sustainable revenue streams and isn't just an elaborate pyramid scheme disguised as sports entertainment. These are people who understand commodity futures and derivative trading, but struggle with the concept that millions of Americans will pay premium prices to watch predetermined athletic performances, featuring elaborate costumes and dramatic storylines. Your business plan for the IPO reads like science fiction written by someone who's spent too much time thinking about how to monetize entertainment that exists in the grey area between legitimate sport and theatrical performance. You're projecting revenue growth based on television contracts, merchandise sales, and live event attendance figures that assume wrestling will continue growing in popularity rather than suddenly becoming unfashionable like other entertainment trends that seemed permanent until they weren't. Listen to the rustle of SEC filing documents, each page representing another layer of financial scrutiny applied to a business that most people consider elaborate make-believe. The due diligence process requires explaining to lawyers and accountants exactly how WWE generates profit from activities that include but are not limited to grown men pretending to hate each other, storylines involving supernatural characters who control lightning, and merchandise sales featuring t-shirts with slogans that would make English teachers develop migraine headaches. Your financial statements tell the story of a company that's transformed from regional curiosity into multimedia empire, with revenue streams diversified across television programming, live entertainment, merchandise licensing, and pay-per-view events that generate income comparable to major sporting events, without requiring actual athletic competition for championship titles that have real meaning. The prospectus must convince potential investors that WWE represents a legitimate investment opportunity rather than an expensive hobby for people with questionable taste in entertainment. This involves presenting wrestling as sports entertainment, a term that acknowledges the predetermined nature of outcomes while emphasizing the athletic skill required to perform safely and entertainingly. Wall Street's initial reaction to WWE's IPO filing resembles the response of adults discovering that children's imaginary games have somehow generated billion-dollar revenue streams and employed thousands of people in careers that didn't exist when they were choosing college majors. The concept requires significant explanation and cultural translation for investors accustomed to more traditional business models. Your executive team prepares for investor presentations that will either convince financial professionals that sports entertainment represents the future of multimedia entertainment, or confirm their suspicions that American popular culture has devolved beyond recognition. An investment opportunity exists in the decline of civilization. The roadshow presentations require explaining WWE's business model to audiences who understand corporate finance, but may need basic education about the difference between professional wrestling and legitimate athletic competition, plus clarification about how predetermined outcomes create rather than eliminate entertainment value for paying customers. Stock market analysts struggle to develop appropriate valuation models for a company whose primary assets include performer contracts, intellectual property rights to fictional characters, and television programming that generates advertising revenue through content that exists nowhere else in the entertainment ecosystem. The offering price reflects investor uncertainty about whether WWE represents revolutionary entertainment innovation or elaborate fad that will eventually exhaust audience interest and leave shareholders holding certificates representing ownership in a company whose primary product is carefully choreographed make-believe that stopped being profitable. October 19th, 1999. The opening bell rings on the New York Stock Exchange, and WWE stock begins trading under the symbol WWE at $17 per share. You're standing on the trading floor wearing a suit that costs more than most cars, watching strangers buy and sell pieces of your wrestling empire with the casual indifference of people purchasing breakfast cereal from a grocery store that happens to be located inside a financial institution. The first day of trading resembles a wrestling match between bulls and bears, except the stakes are measured in market capitalization rather than championship belts, and the outcomes affect pension funds and retirement accounts rather than just entertainment value for people who enjoy watching athletic theatre on television. Your stock price fluctuates with market forces that have nothing to do with wrestling storylines or performer contracts, creating a new category of stress that makes creative differences with temperamental wrestlers seem like relaxing hobbies, pursued by people with too much free time and insufficient understanding of real problems. Listen to the electronic beeping of trading terminals, each sound representing another transaction in the commodification of sports entertainment. Wall Street analysts begin covering WWE stock with the enthusiasm of anthropologists studying a previously unknown civilization that somehow developed advanced economic systems while maintaining cultural practices that defy conventional understanding. Their research reports attempt to explain wrestling to investors using financial terminology that makes body slams sound like strategic business initiatives. The quarterly earnings calls become surreal experiences where you explain television ratings, merchandise sales, and pay-per-view buy rates to investors who want to understand how fake fighting generates real returns on investment. These conversations require translating entertainment metrics into financial language that makes sense to people who measure success in percentage points rather than crowd noise levels. Your fiduciary responsibilities now extend beyond entertaining wrestling fans to satisfying shareholder expectations about revenue growth, profit margins, and strategic business development that maximizes long-term value creation, rather than just producing television content that makes people temporarily forget about their personal problems and economic anxieties. Going public transforms WWE from family business into corporate entity subject to Securities and Exchange Commission regulations, quarterly reporting requirements, and investor relations obligations that make wrestling storylines seem straightforward by comparison. Every business decision must consider shareholder impact as well as entertainment value. The stock market provides access to capital that enables expansion into new markets, acquisition opportunities, and investment in production capabilities that were previously impossible under private ownership structure. Public ownership creates resources for growth that would have taken decades to accumulate through traditional wrestling revenue streams alone. Institutional investors begin purchasing WWE shares for portfolios that include technology companies, pharmaceutical manufacturers, and other corporations whose business models don't involve predetermined athletic outcomes, performed by people wearing colourful costumes designed for maximum visual impact during televised entertainment programming. Your personal net worth becomes tied to stock performance in ways that make Monday night ratings fluctuations feel like minor inconveniences compared to market volatility that affects the paper value of your ownership stake in the company your family built from regional wrestling territory into publicly traded entertainment corporation. The success of WWE's public offering validates the business model and demonstrates that sports entertainment represents legitimate investment opportunity for financial professionals who understand that popular culture generates measurable economic value, regardless of whether that culture involves activities that seem ridiculous to people who don't participate in its consumption. Stock analysts develop coverage models that attempt to predict WWE's financial performance based on factors including television contract negotiations, talent acquisition costs, and demographic trends among audiences who consider professional wrestling essential entertainment rather than optional leisure activity pursued by people with questionable judgment about recreational viewing choices. The dot-com boom is making everyone with a website feel like a financial genius, but your newly public WWE stock is performing like a wrestler who's forgotten his choreography and keeps missing his cues. The market wants growth stories about technology companies that might revolutionize communication, not wrestling companies that definitely revolutionized entertainment, but don't fit neatly into investor categories designed for more traditional business models. Your stock price fluctuates with the enthusiasm of a caffeinated day trader who's discovered that market volatility creates opportunities for profit regardless of underlying business fundamentals. Some days, WWE trades like the next Disney. Other days, it behaves like a regional circus troupe that accidentally got listed on a major exchange through clerical error. The quarterly earnings calls become theatrical performances where you explain to analysts why television ratings translate into sustainable revenue growth. and how merchandise sales reflect brand loyalty that extends beyond temporary entertainment trends. These presentations require more acting skill than most wrestling storylines, because the audience consists of people who can affect your stock price with their investment recommendations. Listen to the hum of computer servers processing thousands of WWE stock transactions, each trade representing someone's opinion about the future of sports entertainment. Institutional investors struggle to categorize WWE within their portfolio allocation models. Is it media company, entertainment conglomerate, sports franchise, technology platform? The classification difficulties reflect broader market confusion about how to value companies whose primary assets include intellectual property rights to fictional characters and exclusive contracts with performers whose careers depend on maintaining physical conditioning and avoiding serious injury. Your investor relations team develops presentations that position WWE as a content creation company with diverse revenue streams, including television programming, live entertainment, consumer products, and digital media distribution. This terminology makes wrestling sound like any other media business, except most media companies don't require their content creators to perform physical stunts that could result in hospitalization. The bear market arrives with the subtlety of a steel chair to the back of the head, and suddenly growth stocks are about as popular as heel wrestlers in their hometown. Technology companies that were valued like they'd discovered perpetual motion machines are now trading like they manufacture buggy whips for a horse and buggy economy that's transitioning to automobiles. WWE stock gets caught in the broader market downturn, despite generating consistent revenue from business activities that don't depend on internet advertising or e-commerce adoption rates. Wrestling fans continue attending live events and purchasing merchandise regardless of NASDAQ performance or venture capital availability for startups with business plans written on napkins from trendy restaurants in Silicon Valley. The market correction provides valuable lessons about the difference between company fundamentals and stock price performance. WWE's business continues growing while the stock price reflects investor sentiment about entertainment companies generally rather than WWE specifically, creating disconnect between operational success and market valuation that makes financial theory seem like elaborate fiction. Your management team focuses on business execution rather than stock price manipulation, understanding that long-term shareholder value creation requires consistent operational performance rather than short-term financial engineering, designed to inflate quarterly results at the expense of sustainable competitive advantage in the entertainment industry. The experience of public ownership during market volatility teaches valuable lessons about the relationship between business performance and investor perception, the importance of clear communication with financial markets, and the challenges of maintaining focus on long-term value creation when stock prices fluctuate based on factors unrelated to company operations. Market analysts eventually develop better understanding of WWE's business model and begin recommending the stock based on entertainment industry fundamentals rather than treating it as an anomaly that defies conventional investment analysis frameworks designed for companies with more traditional revenue generation methods and corporate structures. You're entering the new millennium with a wrestling product so edgy that parents are hiding remote controls, and television rating agencies are developing new categories to describe content that pushes boundaries previously respected by entertainment programming designed for audiences that include children and adults with conservative viewing preferences. The year 2000 arrives like a steel cage match between optimism and anxiety, with Y2K fears making computer programmers wealthy, and wrestling storylines making content advisors develop stress-related medical conditions. Your programming has evolved from family-friendly entertainment into something that makes soap operas look like educational television produced by librarians with strict moral standards. Monday Night Raw features content that would make your father's wrestling programming seem quaint by comparison, language that requires creative censorship techniques, violence that simulates real injury with uncomfortable authenticity, and storylines that explore adult themes including corporate corruption, sexual relationships, and psychological manipulation performed by characters who happen to be professional athletes. Listen to the sound of television sensors working overtime, their bleeping equipment getting more exercise than most gym membership holders. The Attitude Era has reached its peak intensity, generating television ratings that rival major network programming, while featuring content that makes network standards and practices departments grateful They don't work in cable television. Your wrestlers have become cultural icons whose catchphrases influence everyday conversation and whose personal lives generate tabloid coverage comparable to movie stars. Stone cold. Steve Austin's popularity transcends wrestling fandom, making him recognizable to people who've never watched professional wrestling, but appreciate his anti-authority persona and beer-drinking lifestyle choices. His merchandise sales generate revenue streams that make other entertainment properties envious of licensing deals involving t-shirts, featuring slogans that promote recreational alcohol consumption and workplace rebellion. The Rock has evolved from wrestling performer into multimedia entertainer, whose charisma translates across different platforms, including music television appearances, and eventually movies that will make him one of Hollywood's highest-paid actors. His ability to generate crowd reactions makes other entertainers study his techniques for engaging audiences through personal magnetism rather than scripted material alone. Your storylines have become so complex that they require dedicated websites and fan communities to track ongoing narratives involving corporate conspiracies, family dynamics, and romantic relationships that interconnect in ways that make daytime television seem straightforward by comparison. Wrestling has achieved soap opera-level complexity while maintaining athletic performance standards that soap operas cannot replicate. The success creates pressure to continue pushing boundaries that may not exist anymore, leading to creative decisions that prioritize shock value over storytelling quality. The challenge becomes maintaining audience interest without crossing lines that transform entertainment into exploitation or sensationalism that alienates mainstream audiences who appreciate edgy content but have limits regarding acceptable entertainment boundaries. Mick Foley's hardcore wrestling style redefines audience expectations about athletic performance, featuring stunts that make action movies look cautious and pain tolerance that makes other athletes seem like they're participating in recreational activities rather than professional entertainment that requires genuine physical sacrifice for audience satisfaction. The women's division evolves from traditional wrestling to entertainment that emphasizes physical attractiveness over athletic ability, creating content that generates male audience interest but may not represent the most progressive approach to female performer utilization in professional sports entertainment programming. Your corporate culture adapts to success that requires managing performers who've achieved celebrity status comparable to mainstream entertainers, creating workplace dynamics that combine athletic team management with entertainment industry talent relations and corporate hierarchy that must accommodate creative personalities with significant bargaining power. The Monday Night Wars are over, and you've won so decisively that Ted Turner's wrestling experiment has collapsed like a poorly constructed steel cage. WCW is officially dead, purchased by WWE for a price so low that it makes clearance sales look expensive. You now own the corpse of your biggest competitor, along with their video library, trademark rights, and whatever dignity remained after years of creative decisions that made reality television seem sophisticated. March 26th, 2001 becomes wrestling's equivalent of VE Day, except instead of celebrating victory over fascism, you're celebrating triumph over a media conglomerate that spent millions of dollars proving that unlimited financial resources cannot compensate for creative incompetence and management strategies that prioritize ego satisfaction over business fundamentals. Your victory celebration occurs during the final Monday Night Raw broadcast that competes against WCW Monday Nitro, creating a television moment where you appear on competitor programming to announce that you've purchased the company, fired the management, and terminated most of the talent contracts. It's corporate warfare resolved through capitalist acquisition rather than athletic competition. Listen to the sound of silence from WCW's Atlanta headquarters, where executives are probably updating their resumes and reconsidering career choices. The WCW purchase provides access to a video library containing decades of wrestling content that can be repackaged, sold, and licensed for revenue generation that continues producing income from entertainment created years ago by performers whose contracts have expired and whose creative contributions now belong to WWE through legal acquisition rather than original production. Your roster suddenly includes former WCW stars whose contracts you've inherited, along with their trademark rights and character development, creating storyline opportunities involving real-life corporate acquisition, presented as entertainment programming, where former competitors must work together despite legitimate professional grudges and financial disputes. The invasion angle begins as an attempt to monetize the WCW purchase, through storylines involving former WCW wrestlers challenging WWE for control of professional wrestling. In theory, this creates compelling television, featuring real competitive tension between performers with legitimate professional differences and conflicting loyalties to organizations with different creative philosophies. In practice, the storyline suffers from the reality that most of WCW's biggest stars remained under contract to Time Warner rather than transferring to WWE, leaving you with second-tier talent trying to portray themselves as threatening invasion force, comparable to performers they obviously cannot match in terms of name recognition or audience appeal. The creative challenges of the invasion storyline demonstrate the difficulty of creating compelling fiction from corporate acquisition realities that don't translate naturally into entertaining television programming. Business success doesn't automatically generate story ideas that satisfy audiences expecting entertainment value comparable to previous wrestling storylines involving fictional conflicts rather than actual business transactions. Your monopoly on mainstream American wrestling creates new challenges that success inevitably generates. Without legitimate competition, maintaining creative excellence requires internal motivation rather than external pressure from competitors who might steal audience share through superior entertainment programming or more attractive talent contracts. The end of the Monday Night Wars eliminates the creative urgency that produced wrestling's most innovative period, creating risk that success could breed complacency, leading to entertainment quality decline that allows future competitors to challenge WWE's market dominance through programming that recaptures audience enthusiasm for professional wrestling. Market dominance provides financial stability and strategic flexibility, but removes competitive pressure that historically drove innovation in wrestling presentation, storyline development, and talent utilization. Success creates the luxury of market leadership and the responsibility of maintaining entertainment standards without external motivation provided by meaningful competition. Your wrestling empire has achieved something that seemed impossible during the Territorial era: complete market dominance that makes other wrestling promotions look like community theatre productions, attempting to compete with Broadway musicals. But success creates new problems that failure never generated, including talent management challenges that make running a normal business seem like a relaxing hobby for people with too much free time. The roster has evolved into a collection of performers whose egos require as much management as their athletic abilities, creating workplace dynamics that combine professional sports team psychology with entertainment industry prima donna behavior and corporate hierarchy that must accommodate creative personalities who generate millions in revenue while occasionally behaving like children who've been given too much sugar and insufficient supervision. Creative storylines must satisfy audiences whose expectations have been elevated by years of increasingly sophisticated programming, making simple good versus evil narratives seem outdated compared to complex character development that requires writers with psychology degrees and the patience of therapists working with particularly difficult clients who happen to be professional athletes with performance anxiety. Listen to the constant buzz of creative meetings where writers attempt to generate fresh storylines for performers whose characters have already explored most possible dramatic situations. The brand extension splits WWE programming into separate shows featuring different rosters, creating internal competition designed to maintain creative excellence, while maximizing television revenue through multiple programs that require distinct identity and storyline development. Raw and SmackDown become separate wrestling territories, operating under unified corporate ownership but competing for audience attention and creative recognition. Your business model has expanded beyond wrestling into entertainment conglomerate territory, with revenue streams including music recording, movie production, restaurant operations, and merchandise licensing that generates income from products ranging from action figures to breakfast cereals featuring WWE character imagery and nutritional content that parents probably shouldn't examine too closely. The Ruthless Aggression era begins as an attempt to maintain edgy programming standards that attracted audiences during the Attitude Era, while adapting to changing social standards that make previous content seem inappropriate for audiences that include children and advertisers who prefer programming that doesn't generate parental complaints or regulatory scrutiny from government agencies. John Cena emerges as the face of this new era, a performer whose all-American hero persona appeals to younger audiences while maintaining enough edge to satisfy older viewers who remember when wrestling characters were more morally ambiguous and less concerned with serving as positive role models for impressionable children who watch television without parental supervision. The creative challenge becomes balancing entertainment value with social responsibility, creating programming that satisfies diverse audience expectations, including parents who want family-friendly content, teenagers who prefer edgier material, and adult viewers who appreciate sophisticated storytelling that doesn't insult their intelligence or waste their investment in ongoing character development. Your success attracts mainstream media attention that treats wrestling as a legitimate cultural phenomenon rather than niche entertainment for people with questionable taste in recreational viewing. Television interviews, magazine profiles, and academic studies analyze WWE's cultural impact and business model with the seriousness previously reserved for discussions of more traditional entertainment forms. The corporate responsibility that accompanies market leadership requires considering WWE's influence on popular culture, social values, and audience behavior in ways that smaller wrestling promotions never needed to address. Success creates platforms for cultural impact that extend beyond entertainment into areas including social commentary and behavioral modeling, for audiences who view wrestling characters as role models rather than just performers. You're facing a crisis that makes creative differences seem like minor disagreements about catering preferences. Sponsors are threatening to abandon WWE programming because your content has become too controversial for advertisers who prefer associations with family-friendly entertainment rather than television shows featuring simulated violence and storylines that make parental guidance warnings seem insufficient. The year 2008 arrives with economic recession, making everyone reconsider spending priorities, and corporate sponsors are particularly nervous about supporting programming that generates negative publicity or regulatory attention from government agencies concerned about children's television consumption habits. Your revenue model depends on advertising sales, and advertisers are increasingly uncomfortable with content that makes their products seem inappropriate for mainstream consumer markets. The solution involves something that would have seemed impossible during the Attitude Era: voluntarily adopting PG rating guidelines that transform WWE programming from edgy adult entertainment into content appropriate for family viewing. This decision requires abandoning creative strategies that attracted audiences through boundary-pushing storylines and controversial character development in favor of programming that satisfies parental approval and corporate sponsorship requirements. Listen to the sound of creative writers deleting scripts that no longer meet content guidelines, each deletion representing entertainment possibilities sacrificed for commercial viability. The PG era begins with John Cena becoming the undisputed face of family-friendly wrestling, a performer whose clean-cut persona and positive messaging appeal to younger audiences, while generating merchandise sales that make other entertainers envious of licensing deals involving everything from clothing to breakfast cereals, featuring nutritional content that parents can actually endorse. Your storylines must navigate the challenge of creating compelling television without relying on violence, sexual content, or language that requires censorship techniques. This creative constraint forces innovation in character development and plot construction that emphasizes athletic performance and personality-driven conflict, rather than shock value and controversial content designed primarily to generate short-term audience attention. The women's division evolves from entertainment that emphasized physical attractiveness over athletic ability into programming that showcases legitimate wrestling talent and storylines that present female performers as athletes rather than decorative elements included primarily for male audience appeal. This transformation reflects changing social expectations and creates opportunities for more sophisticated character development. Sponsors return to WWE programming with enthusiasm that reflects their comfort with content that won't generate parental complaints or regulatory scrutiny. Corporate partnerships expand into areas including toy manufacturing, clothing licensing, and promotional tie-ins with companies that consider WWE association beneficial for their brand image rather than potential liability, requiring legal protection and public relations damage control. The creative challenge becomes maintaining entertainment value while operating within constraints that eliminate many storytelling techniques that previously attracted adult audiences. Success requires developing new approaches to character conflict and narrative tension that satisfy diverse audience expectations without relying on content that makes programming unsuitable for younger viewers. Television ratings initially decline as some adult viewers abandon WWE programming in favour of entertainment that maintains edgier content standards, creating temporary revenue challenges that require balancing short-term audience losses against long-term benefits of expanded demographic appeal and increased sponsorship opportunities that family-friendly programming enables. Your business model adapts to prioritise revenue streams that benefit from mainstream acceptability rather than niche audience dedication. Merchandise sales increase among younger demographics, licensing opportunities expand into previously unavailable markets, and corporate partnerships develop with companies that were previously uncomfortable with WWE association due to content concerns. The PG transition demonstrates the relationship between creative content and commercial viability in entertainment industries, where audience appeal must be balanced against advertiser acceptance and regulatory compliance. Artistic freedom and financial success sometimes require competing priorities that successful businesses must navigate through strategic decision-making rather than creative preferences alone. The WWE Network launches in 2014 as your answer to changing media consumption habits that make traditional television programming seem as outdated as territorial wrestling boundaries once were. You're essentially creating Netflix for wrestling fans, except instead of binge-watching crime documentaries, subscribers consume decades of professional wrestling content, including pay-per-view events that previously cost $50 each and now represent unlimited entertainment value for monthly subscription fees. The streaming service requires technological infrastructure investment that makes previous production costs look like pocket change spent on office supplies. Server capacity, content encoding, user interface development, and customer service systems all require expertise that WWE must either develop internally or purchase from technology companies that charge consultant fees comparable to wrestler salaries for services that most viewers assume happen automatically. Your content library becomes the streaming service's primary asset, featuring thousands of hours of wrestling programming spanning multiple decades and including defunct promotions whose video rights you've acquired through business transactions that transformed competitor archives into WWE intellectual property. This historical content provides subscribers with entertainment value that extends far beyond current programming. Listen to the electronic hum of servers storing wrestling history in digital formats that make physical video libraries seem quaint. The subscription model transforms WWE's revenue structure from advertising-dependent programming and pay-per-view sales into recurring monthly income that provides financial stability and predictable cash flow. Instead of convincing audiences to purchase individual events, you're selling ongoing access to entertainment libraries that generate customer loyalty through content volume, rather than event-specific value propositions. Traditional pay-per-view distributors resist the streaming transition because it eliminates their revenue-sharing arrangements and reduces their relevance in entertainment distribution chains that have operated profitably for decades. Cable companies, satellite providers, and pay-per-view aggregators oppose business model changes that threaten established revenue streams and industry relationships. The technology challenges involve creating streaming platforms capable of handling traffic spikes during live event broadcasts, when hundreds of thousands of subscribers simultaneously access video content that requires significant bandwidth and server capacity. Technical failures during major events could damage customer satisfaction and subscription retention rates that determine long-term business success. Your programming strategy for the network includes original content development that provides exclusive value for subscribers while maintaining television programming that attracts new audiences who might convert to subscription customers. This requires balancing content distribution across multiple platforms without cannibalizing existing revenue streams or reducing programming quality on any platform. International expansion becomes more feasible through streaming distribution that eliminates geographic restrictions imposed by traditional television broadcasting and cable system availability. The network provides global access to WWE programming in markets where television distribution was previously impossible or economically unviable for content providers and local broadcasters. The streaming service success depends on subscriber acquisition and retention rates that require ongoing content development, technical reliability, and customer service quality that satisfies audiences accustomed to professional streaming platforms operated by technology companies with unlimited development budgets and years of experience managing digital media distribution. Content creation for streaming platforms requires different approaches than television programming, with opportunities for longer-form programming, documentary content, and archived material presentation that provides educational and historical value alongside traditional wrestling entertainment. The platform enables programming experimentation that television constraints previously prevented. The network represents WWE's adaptation to media consumption trends that prioritize on-demand access over scheduled programming, individual content selection over curated television experiences, and subscription convenience over per-event purchasing decisions that require ongoing financial commitment evaluation for each entertainment choice. Your empire has evolved into something that would make the McMahons of the 1950s wonder if they accidentally founded a technology company that happens to feature professional wrestling as its primary content vertical. WWE is now a multimedia entertainment conglomerate with revenue streams including streaming services, social media monetization, international licensing, corporate partnerships, and intellectual property rights that generate income from sources your grandfather couldn't have imagined when he was booking wrestlers in smoke-filled basements. The modern WWE operates like a cross between Disney and ESPN, creating family-friendly entertainment content while maintaining the athletic credibility that distinguishes sports entertainment from pure theatrical performance. Your programming reaches global audiences through digital platforms that make territorial boundaries seem like quaint historical concepts that once limited entertainment distribution to geographic regions with specific cultural preferences. Social media has transformed how wrestling storylines develop and how audiences interact with performers, creating direct communication channels between wrestlers and fans that bypass traditional media gatekeepers. Twitter feuds between wrestlers generate legitimate heat that enhances television storylines, while Instagram content provides behind-the-scenes access that makes characters seem more authentic and relatable to audiences seeking personal connection with entertainers. Listen to the constant ping of social media notifications, each representing another interaction in the ongoing conversation between WWE and its global audience. Your talent development system has evolved into a professional athletics academy that trains performers in wrestling technique, media skills, physical conditioning, and character development through programs that make other sports training seem informal by comparison. The WWE Performance Center operates like a combination athletic training facility, television production school, and business education program that prepares performers for multimedia entertainment careers. International expansion has created a global wrestling audience that consumes WWE programming in multiple languages and cultural contexts, requiring content adaptation that maintains universal entertainment appeal while respecting local preferences and regulatory requirements. Wrestling's athletic foundation translates across cultural boundaries more easily than programming that depends primarily on language-specific humor or cultural references. The business model continues evolving as technology creates new revenue opportunities through virtual reality experiences, mobile gaming, e-commerce platforms, and digital collectibles that monetize fan engagement in ways that previous generations of entertainment executives could not have conceived. Each technological advancement creates potential income streams that require evaluation for compatibility with WWE's brand identity and audience expectations. Your corporate structure includes departments that didn't exist when wrestling was primarily a live entertainment business. Digital media specialists, international business developers, technology platform managers, and data analytics teams that measure audience engagement across multiple platforms to optimize content strategy and revenue generation from diverse entertainment consumption preferences. The success demonstrates how traditional entertainment businesses can adapt to technological change through strategic innovation rather than resistance to new distribution methods and audience consumption habits. WWE's transformation from regional wrestling territory into global entertainment brand illustrates the possibilities available to companies willing to evolve their business models while maintaining core entertainment values that originally attracted audiences. The McMahon family legacy has evolved from regional wrestling promoters into entertainment industry, executives whose innovations influence not just professional wrestling, but multimedia content creation, audience engagement strategies, and business model development that other entertainment companies study and attempt to replicate in their own industry adaptation efforts. Wrestling's transformation from niche regional entertainment into global multimedia phenomenon demonstrates the potential for specialized content to achieve mainstream success through consistent quality improvement, technological adoption, and business model innovation that expands audience reach while maintaining the authentic entertainment value that originally distinguished the product from competing alternatives. Your empire stands as proof that American entrepreneurship, creative vision, and willingness to take calculated risks can transform inherited family businesses into industry-leading entertainment corporations that influence popular culture, generate significant economic impact, and create career opportunities for thousands of performers, production staff, and business professionals across multiple entertainment industry sectors. The McMahons transformed regional wrestling into a global entertainment empire through decades of calculated risks, creative innovation, and business decisions that either made them industry visionaries or nearly destroyed everything their family had built. From basement handshakes to publicly traded corporations, from territorial agreements to streaming platforms, WWE's evolution reflects the broader transformation of American entertainment from local curiosity into global cultural export. Would you have risked everything your family built on the belief that fake fighting could become mainstream entertainment? Or would you have played it safe and remained a regional wrestling promoter? Comment below and let us know if you'd choose security or the chance to change an entire industry forever.